Welcome to Retail Untangled. My name is Amie Larter, and this is the podcast where we speak to retail industry experts and find out business hacks that help them succeed. You won't find these gems anywhere else, and we have some superb stories from the coalface, as well as helicopter insights from retail industry leaders. Ask any retailer right now whether data is a priority, and they're going to say yes. Ask them whether their data is actually in good shape, and the room goes fairly quiet. The irony of the AI era in retail is this: the more powerful the technology becomes, the more brutally it exposes the quality of what you're feeding it. Bad data didn't matter as much when the stakes were lower. Now, with AI starting to shape how consumers discover products, compare availability, and make purchase decisions before they've visited a single retailer's website, inaccurate or fragmented data isn't just an operational headache, it's a commercial liability. Today on Retail Untangled, I'm joined by Richard Widdowson, Vice President of Global Retail Solutions at SAS Institute, a company that's been doing serious analytics work in retail long before AI became a boardroom agenda item. Richard has a view across global retail that most people in this industry don't. We're going to talk about why data unification has become the real bottleneck in AI adoption, what's actually at stake when the foundation isn't there, and what the retailers who've sorted it out are doing differently. Welcome to Retail Untangled, Richard.
Hi, nice to be here.
We're sitting in the middle of NRF. It's been a good show so far.
It's been excellent. It's surprising how much traffic there is already.
I know. All right, straight into it. What's the most expensive data problem you're seeing retailers carry right now that they either don't know about or potentially aren't taking seriously enough?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think what we're seeing now in retail is this reliance on AI. I mean, it's the buzzword and everybody's using it.
I think we've spoken about it in every conversation
I
today.
can imagine, yes. In every booth you walk around here, there's AI somewhere in that. And I think what people are not realizing and need to understand is, as you're thinking about AI, the data is so important, because the AI doesn't necessarily say, oops, that's bad data. So if you don't have that credibility of data, you don't have the governance in there, you're not using accurate data, then guess what? Your AI engine is going to produce something that's not accurate. Maybe perhaps you're using AI for a pricing decision or a marketing decision or product decisions. Well, guess what? If the data's not good, as they always say, garbage in equals garbage out, or trash in, trash out, wherever you are in the world. So, that's the big thing that people are not understanding or not comprehending when it comes to data governance.
And it makes so much sense. So on the question of data unification, is this a technology problem, an organizational problem, or something else? Because we've been saying it's critical for many, many years. And yet many retailers are nowhere near getting it right, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's a combination of data and process and technology and change management, because I think, when you think about data unification, and I think about that as data across a retail organization, whether you're in the planning function or logistics or supply chain, is making sure you've got that true, integration across all the technology, but all the different processes are relying on that data integration as well. I mean, it's kind of that one version of the truth mentality.
Yeah.
If you're not unified on your data sources, I mean, I talk to so many retailers where they've got, one data pool for a pricing decision, a different data pool for planning, different for warehouse management. You've really got to integrate across all that, and then use the hyper-automation to bring all that data together into, making those decisions faster and making that personalization matter.
It makes sense. So there's a shift happening in how consumers discover and research products. AI-driven search is starting to surface availability, pricing, and delivery information before a shopper even visits a single retailer's website. If your data is fragmented or inaccurate, what's the actual business risk, and does that compound quickly?
Yes, it does. Again, it's back to my earlier comment around that personalization. I think about that more than anything. If you don't have the right data available, and you're not really thinking about how you bring that together in that personalization message, imagine the scenario: you walk into a pet food store and you have a cat and you get a message that says 50% off dog food. That's a bad issue. That's a bad experience. So that kind of fragmented data and inaccuracy across the end-to-end supply chain and the retailer it's probably going to turn you off and make you go somewhere else, somewhere that does understand who you are and understands, what your needs are. So that's a big risk across the retail industry.
Everyone claims to be doing personalization now, but if the data underneath it is fragmented or stale, what are retailers actually delivering to their customers, and how big is the gap between what they think they're doing and what the customer is actually experiencing?
Yeah, I mean, it gets back to that dog food example. I always like to use that one because I've experienced it. I've had those lovely emails that introducing me to the product. I'm like, I don't have pets. I'm sorry you got that wrong. And I think about maybe I can answer that in the opposite way to say, if you think about a retailer that's doing this well, we have a big customer of ours in North America, a cosmetics customer called Ulta Beauty. They have 44 million rewards members, and that's 95% of their customer base is signed up to their loyalty program because it's personal. They've got the message right. They've got the personalization right. It's no longer this, I'm going to put you in a group of this customer segment. I now know who you are specifically, and I'm going to tailor my message just to you. And when you can achieve that level of personalization, it works. And the opposite, obviously, is you go somewhere else, somewhere that does have that.
Personalization journey is spectacular.
Yes, it is. It's very good.
It is. Moving on to demand forecasting. It's an area where the technology has existed for years, and yet chronic overstock and stockouts is still one of the most expensive operational failures in retail. What's still going wrong?
I mean, there's a couple of things here. Obviously, the data accuracy. We've talked a lot about data, and if you don't have good data, that's going to drive a bad result. But I think the other thing that we've seen is gaps in data. And that could be internal or external. So maybe you've got missing data, a time period or a part of the country or a distribution center or a region. If you've got a gap in the data, that's where you start to see some of those challenges where it goes wrong. We have a capability where you can actually create that synthetic data to fill those gaps in, which helps. But I think the other big gap that we're starting to see and people are realizing is bringing in the external data where it matters. There's a tremendous amount of internal data that retailers have, but there's a tremendous amount of external data that's available out there. And when you start to bring in that data, sift through the data that's relevant and use it, you see great results. If I want to call on a couple of, one example actually we just did recently in Canada with a big retailer in Canada. And they wanted to look at how can they help improve their sustainability goals, in their forecasting process and look at, carbon footprint impact. So we brought in external data like gas prices and weather and those things, and they brought it into their data pool that we use for forecasting with a view of looking at the carbon footprint impact. What they ended up actually doing is a 63% improvement in forecast accuracy in 4 weeks just by bringing in other data. So again, when I think about those retailers who haven't cracked it yet, open up the book, look at the data across there, work with somebody that can make sense of that data, and you're going to see the results.
Yeah, that makes sense. So pricing and markdown optimization, it's an area where AI can have an almost immediate P&L impact. And yet most retailers are still doing this manually or with very blunt tools. What does good look like there, and how quickly can a retailer expect to see a difference? Because it's so important.
Yeah. I mean, expect to see a difference, good or bad, you see it within minutes, literally. I mean, if you make a bad pricing decision, that can have a significant impact on the profitability of the company. I mean, if you make a markdown and you go too far, then you're going to clear the problem, but you've lost the profit. So I think for me is the what good looks like here is having that real-time capability to understand the trends, to understand what's happening. You might think you came up with the best red T-shirt that ever walked, on the catwalk, but customers don't like it, and you've got to make a decision quickly to say, well, let's run a promotion, let's start some pricing activity because maybe you got it wrong, and if you don't, make those decisions quickly and don't start to react to that, you're going to end up losing a lot of money. I mean, I think what the people say is the first loss is the best loss because it's the least loss. You need the technology that understands that so you can start to, be able to impact on that.
And data governance is one of those terms that gets a lot of boardroom airtime and not a lot of operational traction. What does good data governance actually look like inside retail business? And how do you make the case for it to a leadership team that sees it as an overhead rather than an investment?
Rather than an investment, yeah. No, I mean, I think, again, it goes back to that transparency, that clarity, that accuracy. I mean, those are the three words that come to my mind when I think about data governance. You've got to build governance in your process by design to create that. I mean, as we talked about earlier, accuracy drives value. And if you don't have the accuracy and you're not thinking about data governance in the right way, then it's going to be a challenge. And it's got to be, you've got to put trusted methods in there, and you've got to, making sure that you're thinking about the data governance in the right way. And the accuracy, I mean, again, if I was pitching this to the boardroom, the value of accuracy is if you've got data and you don't have a good governance process through that and understand where you've got gaps, then it's a significant cost to the business. I mean, I was just talking to someone earlier today, and I was using the example of, again, another retailer in North America. I wish I had more examples of the region here. We're hoping to have that soon. Is, when you look at across like procurement, you look across all the different processes around invoices and invoice matching and supplier relationships, that's a huge amount of data. And if you don't have good processes in place to understand where there's gaps and overlaps and duplications, it's millions of dollars of opportunity that, you can identify there that otherwise you would never see. So boardroom, if you want to make millions of dollars, here's where you need to go.
Now, you've watched retailers invest in data infrastructure for years. At what point does a retailer have to accept that the problem isn't the technology or the data, it's that the organization isn't actually built to act on insights even when it has it?
Yeah, I mean, again, that kind of goes back to, I've come out of the retail industry and I go back to, you've got the finance organization, you've got the planning organization, you've got the logistics organization, and everybody's correct. Everybody's got the right answer. But it's that silo mentality versus that collaborative planning approach that I said, if we work off the same data, we work off the same results, the same technology, and use that to drive the insights, then it's going to make, tremendous value. And you've got to realize that, I joke to people about dashboards. Dashboards are great, but if the dashboard doesn't drive an action, then there's going to be no value. It can tell you that things are bad, but if you don't know why they're bad or what can I do about it, there's no value coming out of that. Yeah. So it's like, I said to people, it's you think about your dashboard in your car that you drive every day, and it's telling you that, you're going at such a speed, or your GPS is telling you which direction. But if you don't actually know what to do about that, then you're going to have a problem.
If there's nothing that you're activating,
correct.
What's the point?
There's no value to it. Yeah.
What are you watching right now that the broader industry is underestimating and will wish they'd have paid attention to sooner?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question.
Tricky one to end on.
I get my crystal ball out here. I think, it's AI that you can trust. AI is not going away. AI is embedded in all our solutions. I mean, we've been using AI. We're a 50-year-old company, and we're not new to this. We've been using AI for many years, but it's got to be AI that you can trust and data that you can turn into an action. Something that you can do at scale, something you can do at speed. I mean, there's so much data now. If you aren't quick enough, the customer's going to the competition. I mean, they really are. They're going somewhere else. So you've got to leverage that data, leverage the AI capabilities, connect the end-to-end that we've talked about here, and then be able to operate at scale. I mean, again, I love using customer examples. We had somebody that thought they could solve their forecasting problem by going open source. And we said, sure, great, okay. And they managed to get to 80% accuracy. And it took them a few months to get there.
Yeah.
And they came to us and said, can you help us with this? And I said, well, this is the power of AI is within a couple of days, we understand what the problem was and we created the solution. But then the value of what retailers need to understand and where the industry is going is you've got to be able to do it quickly. And we took a 13-hour process that they were doing and we got it down to 30 minutes. So now I can react in real time because the customer now, they've got the cell phone. It's so easy to just go somewhere else. If you aren't on top of this and fast and quick, then you've lost that customer. So it's really about leveraging the technology and having that real-time insights.
Nice. Good one. Now, there's a shift happening in how consumers discover and research products. AI-driven search is starting to surface availability, pricing, and delivery information before a shopper visits a single retailer's website. If your data is fragmented or inaccurate, what's the actual business risk and how quickly will this compound?
Yeah, great question, and it compounds quickly. I mean, I think about this, and the example is if the customer's doing that, taking the time to research a product before they walk into the retail outlet, and they want to. I mean, how many people use online retailers now to look at the reviews and to look at what the best product is? But then imagine the opportunity, and I've had this experience, is I've done my research, I found out the right product, I found out where I can go buy this, and then I click to buy or I walk in the store and it's not there. I mean, that really is that's the business risk if, you've created the capability to provide those insights and the availability and the pricing and the delivery information, but then you can't fulfill on that promise. That's a bad experience. So if you're saying you're available, be available. If you're saying it's going to cost you $10, make sure it costs $10. If you can deliver it tomorrow, make sure you deliver it tomorrow. So making sure you're leveraging the data, using the insights, and being able to predict exactly what information I should show to the customer. I mean, the ideal scenario is I can deliver it to you tomorrow, but guess what? It turns up tonight. That's the right experience we want, not the opposite.
Under promise.
Exactly right, yes.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Retail Untangled, and a big thank you to Richard from SAS Institute for joining me live from NRF APAC. To be the first to know when the next episode lands, like and follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts.